Well, the real scientists tell us that the moon is going to look blood red because the Earth is going to be blocking some of the light that hits it. So it's not a full eclipse. If it were a full eclipse, the moon would essentially disappear because what's called the umbra, the darkest part of the Earth's shadow, would be block it out. But in this eclipse, which the next moon, we're going to just see a different color of the moon. So our first eclipse of the year, and it should be a really neat thing to see, May 15th.
Russian state television have issued a brazen warning that Moscow could wipe out Britain with a nuclear tsunami in retaliation for supporting Ukraine, declaring there would be no survivors.
In Britain, they seem to be rambling. Why do they threaten vast Russia with nuclear weapons while they are only a small island? Why do they play games? Another option is to plunge Britain into the depths of the sea using Russian underwater robotic drone Poseidon. The explosion of its torpedo close to Britain's shores will raise a giant wave, a tsunami up to 500 meters. This tidal wave is also a carrier of extremely high doses of radiation. Surging over Britain, it will turn what is left of it into radioactive desert.
The views expressed on this channel are those of the video's creator, and not those of YouTube, Google, their staff, and/or affiliates. YouTube, Google, their staff, and/or affiliates shall not be held liable for the views, expressions, and comments made on this channel.
This is an Omega Watchman Media Group production.
Due to the mature nature of this content, language, and depth, viewer discretion is advised.
In Santiago in Chile, a partial eclipse could be seen. Let's take a quick look. This partial solar eclipse was seen over the Andean mountains. It's the first of two partial solar eclipses in 2022. The second one will occur on the 25th of November. We won't see another total solar eclipse until, well, it's not long.
Are you getting more signs of concern from the general public about nuclear war?
Oh, absolutely. No matter what they say, the threats from Moscow are growing. The latest one comes from a state broadcaster. It has issued this warning to the United Kingdom and Ireland. Stop support to Ukraine or face a nuclear tsunami. That is the threat. Here's a report.
Другой вариант – погрузить Британию в морскую пучину, российский подводный робот-беспилотник.
It was a brazen threat from one of Russia's top propagandists. Last Sunday, a Russian state TV presenter issued a chilling warning.
Нет никакого способа остановить этот подводный дрон.
The threat came with a simulation. A missile would launch from a Russian submarine. The broadcaster claimed it would raise a nuclear tsunami.
500 метров. Такой водяной шквал является еще и носителем экстремальных доз радиации.
One that will turn the UK into a radioactive desert and destroy Ireland. Who is the man making these threats? His name is Dmitry Kiselyov. Many consider him to be Russia's chief spin doctor. Kiselyov has a reputation for such extravagant threats. In 2014, he issued similar threats to America. Kiselyov claimed that Russia could turn the United States into radioactive ash.
This is an Omega Watchman Media Group production.
Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And great signs shall there be from heaven, and there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars. And upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire, and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come.
The second new moon of April 2022, which occurs on Saturday, April 30th, will be a black moon. It is a rare occurrence which will also coincide with a partial solar eclipse. This year's first solar eclipse will be visible in several parts of the world. The partial solar eclipse will start on May 1st, 2022 at 12:15 am and end at 4:07 am IST. The solar eclipse occurs when the moon crosses between the sun and the earth.
In Santiago in Chile, a partial eclipse could be seen. Let's take a quick look. This partial solar eclipse was seen over the Andean mountains. It's the first of 2 partial solar eclipses.
Oh, then in 2 weeks, we'll be able to see a total lunar eclipse. That's if the skies are clear, right? Beginning at 8:27 on the night of May 15th, the Earth's shadow will start to blot out the moon. And the Denver Astronomical Society wants to help you get a good view. They're opening the University of Denver's Chamberlain Observatory to the public, making telescopes and binoculars available so you can check out the heavens as that eclipse happens. 15th.
The public is invited to join the Natural History and Science Museum to watch this month's lunar eclipse. Sunday, May 5th, the first chance since 2019 for New Mexicans to see a total lunar eclipse.
There's going to be a lunar at 10:11 to 10:53. So what is going to happen? Well, the real scientists tell us that the moon is going to look blood red because the Earth is going to be blocking some of the light that hits it. So it's not a full eclipse. If it were a full eclipse, the moon would essentially disappear because what's called the umbra, the darkest part of the Earth's shadow, would be it out. But in this eclipse, which the next moon, we're going to just see a different color of the moon. So our first eclipse of the year, and it should be a really neat thing to see.
If you wake up early and look in the southeast pre-dawn sky, you'll see a spectacular alignment of planets. Starting from the horizon, there'll be Jupiter, Neptune, Venus, Mars, and Saturn. All of them will be easily visible to unaided eyes, except Neptune. But the planet parade is not the only celestial event to look forward to. As the planets move in each other's vicinity, they will end up in close conjunctions with other planets. And one of the most spectacular planetary conjunctions will be the Jupiter-Venus conjunction.
And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh.
This is an Omega Watchman Media Group production.
This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come.
Ye shall hear of wars, and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved.
On CBS Mornings at 7:30, and the war in Ukraine is bringing back Cold War memories for millions of Americans, including a deep fear of a potential nuclear war. In fact, a recent CBS News poll found that 70% of American adults worried that Russia's invasion could at some point involve a mushroom cloud like the one you've been seeing behind
Russian
you.
state television have issued a brazen warning that Moscow could wipe out Britain with a nuclear tsunami in retaliation for supporting Ukraine, declaring there would be no survivors.
Higgaion Selah. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth.
This is an Omega Watchmen Media Group production.
In Britain, they seem to be rambling. Why do they threaten vast Russia with nuclear weapons while they are only a small island? Why do they play games? Another option is to plunge Britain into the depths of the sea using Russian underwater robotic drone Poseidon. The explosion of this torpedo close to Britain's shores will raise a giant wave, a tsunami up to 500 meters. This tidal wave is also a carrier of extremely high doses of radiation. Surging over Britain, it will turn what is left of them into radioactive desert.
Uses the N-word, the nuclear word, all the time. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. He uses it on a daily basis. And everybody's so afraid, so afraid, so afraid. And as they're afraid, he uses it more and more. That's why he's doing the kind of things he's doing. He's doing them because he thinks nobody's going to ever attack us because they're all stupid and they're afraid to talk about it.
I totally agree with you.
Okay?
So what would you do
about it? And instead of, excuse me, it's a little complicated.
Sorry.
Instead of, kowtowing, instead of Biden saying, oh, he's got nuclear weapons. He keeps saying he's got we have better weapons. We have the greatest submarine power in history.
So what would you say and do?
I would say we have far more than you do, far more powerful than you, and you can't use that word ever again. You cannot use the nuclear word ever again. And if you do, we're going to have problems.
My reading of what you've been saying is that when you were talking to Putin, when you were president and he was talking about potentially invading Ukraine, that you threatened him with your nuclear capability.
I threatened him like he has never been threatened before.
Did you threaten to use nuclear weapons?
I don't want to say that. I threatened him like he has never been threatened before.
What's your message for Putin now, right now? If you could talk to him, what would you say to him?
I would say it's a shame what you've done. You're killing, I think potentially, look, if these people aren't smart, and they're not, our leaders are not smart. If they're not smart, you're going to end up in a nuclear war.
Now on CBS Mornings at 7:30, and the war in Ukraine is bringing back Cold War memories for millions of Americans, including a deep fear of a potential nuclear war. In fact, a recent CBS News poll found that 70% of American adults worried that Russia's invasion could at some point involve a mushroom cloud like the one you've been seeing behind me. And the rhetoric from Russia's leaders has only poured gasoline on those concerns. In a not-so-veiled threat, President Vladimir Putin warned this week they have all the weapons they need to respond if other countries get involved in the fighting. In response, President Biden said yesterday it's, quote, irresponsible for Russian leaders to make idle comments about nuclear weapons. So unfortunately, now seems to be like a very good time to think about what a nuclear war might actually look like and whether our country would be prepared.
On a gloomy spring day just across the river from New York City, we spent some time recently imagining the unimaginable.
If a nuclear device were to detonate right there, what would it look like from where we're standing?
The fireball itself would be bigger than the Empire State Building considerably.
Historian Alex Wellerstein has spent a career studying scenarios like this one.
A few seconds later, you would feel a shockwave hit you. You would feel a heat on your face. It would be an awe-inspiring sight. It would be terrifying, but like nothing else you would ever see in this world.
Test explosions caught on camera decades ago allow us to actually see just what a nuclear blast would look like. The result of an uncontrolled chain reaction, splitting and fusing atoms and releasing an energy locked inside billions of years ago by exploding stars. But to demonstrate what a nuclear blast would actually do to a city, Wellerstein, a professor at the Stevens Institute of Technology, developed a grim tool, a website called NukeMap, on which people can simulate a detonation anywhere in the world.
Let's put it around Times Square.
And as in real life, it begins with just the push of a button.
Okay, all right, let's hit the button.
Let's hit the button.
Oh man, and look at the fatalities.
There's a sort of zone that's about here, which is pretty hopeless no matter what.
That's with a bomb like the one that struck Hiroshima, a so-called tactical weapon, small by today's standards. When we simulated larger, more modern bombs,
We went from 15 kilotons now to 800 kilotons.
we saw how a single blast could cause heavy damage throughout an entire metropolitan region, killing hundreds of thousands of people, with winds carrying radioactive particles even further.
These are areas where if you're not taking shelter several hours after the bomb, you could get enough radiation to die, you could get enough radiation to get significantly sick.
The atomic bomb explodes.
There was a time when Americans prepared for such an attack.
First, you duck, and then you cover.
In the 1950s and 60s, school children did drills to help survive a blast, and a public campaign educated Americans on surviving the fallout.
Kicked up by the bombs drifting back to Earth, the amount of dust on my finger could kill a man in a matter of days.
This is an Omega Watchmen Media Group production.